Shalom. This week's Torah portion here in the land of Israel is Parashat Kedoshim, while in the diaspora, meaning the rest of the world, the Torah portion is Acharei Mot, which was read in Israel last week. Now, why is this so? Because the Torah, as you know, is divided into 53 portions, and one is read each week. But whenever one of the festivals falls out on a Shabbat, the weekly Parsha is postponed, and in its stead, a special Torah reading assigned to the festival is read. The tricky part is that outside of the land of Israel, a second day of each festival is observed. This year, the seventh day of Passover fell on a Friday, and in Israel, where only one day of the festival is observed, the next day, being Shabbat, was observed as a regular post-Passover Shabbat, and so the regular order of Torah readings was resumed. Outside of Israel, the traditional reading for the last day of Passover was read, which is found in the portion of Re'eh in the book of Deuteronomy, and thus a lag of 1 week was created between the readings of Israel and the diaspora. This phenomenon is actually not all that unusual, and actually it occurs in about 30% of all the years. This disparity will continue until the Shabbat of July 30th, when congregations outside of Israel will read the two last portions of the book of Numbers, Matot and Maseh, thus catching up to their brethren in Israel, and will all be caught up in time to read Parashat Devarim together. But today, let's see if we can connect both portions in a way that can resonate with each of us, no matter where you are in Hashem's world and whichever Torah portion you happen to be reading this week. So the portion of Acharei Mot, meaning literally after the death of, begins in Leviticus 16, and it picks up where Torah left off back in Parashat Shemini, following the death of Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu. Acharei Mot begins with a focus on the awesome service of the high priest on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, in the Holy Temple. Actually, it was the untimely death of Nadav and Avihu that revealed the true holiness of the tabernacle, and ultimately, it was their death that presaged the service of Yom Kippur. When Aaron's sons mistakenly strayed from the boundaries that Hashem had set for approaching his service, yet the entrance of the high priest into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur is really the culmination of everything that they were sincerely trying to achieve with their unauthorized service. Nadav and Avihu's death is a stark reminder that no one can just approach the holy whenever or however they like. Even those who have kept themselves completely pure are forbidden to do so. And now, here in Acharei Mot, we learn that even Aaron, the high priest himself, can only enter into the inner portion of the Holy Temple on a certain day and in a specific fashion, with the incense offering and with the sprinkling of the blood of the offerings, which atones for all impurity of the entire nation and all their misdeeds. Any instance of an infraction of impurity towards the temple that transpired all throughout the year, whether committed by ordinary Israelites or by the Kohanim, is cleansed, is realigned, is atoned for through this intimate meeting, this entrance of the Kohen Gadol into the most holy place once a year on Yom Kippur. So the Parsha describes the stages of this process as the Kohen Gadol enters the Holy of Holies and the cloud of incense covers over the revelation of godliness, as it were. With his finger, he sprinkles from the blood of the offerings towards the ark cover. In the words of Torah, atoning for the people. And then in chapter 16, we find this amazing verse, verse 16. Open up your hearts. It states, "Thus shall he provide atonement upon the sanctuary for the defilements of the children of Israel, even for their rebellious sins among all their sins. And so shall he do for the tent of meeting that dwells with them amidst their defilements." This verse informs us that the same procedure of entering into the holy place and sprinkling blood from the offerings that facilitates this realignment known as atonement, which the Kohen performs for himself and on behalf of his household and on behalf of all the people, he also performs on behalf of the tent of meeting itself, which the verse states dwells with them in the midst of their defilement. What do these words mean? That the tent of meeting dwells with them in the midst of their defilement? Rashi tells us it means that although they may be impure, the Shekhinah is among them. This is so amazing that you have to open up your heart in the deepest way, because Hashem is here saying, reassuring his children, I want to be with you despite it all. I know who you are. I know your imperfections, and it doesn't chase me away from you. I'm staying right here with you. This is the deepest secret, this willingness on Hashem's part to dwell with them in the midst of their defilement. It's like the fondest divine kiss. It's like Hashem's assurance, I love you as you are. And once again, we see Hashem uplifts us in celebration of who we are, perhaps in spite of who we are, or is it rather because of who we are in this world, as we are in this world that he created and loves. So I love you as you are, Hashem says, but yet at the same time, I always call upon you to be better. I enjoin you to strive to be the best that you can be, to live in such a way that you reflect my presence among you. So now, the second portion, the portion of Parashat Kedoshim, meaning holy ones, starting in chapter 19, begins with a call to holiness. Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the entire assembly of the children of Israel and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, Hashem, your God, am holy. This charge to be holy is so important, encapsulating so many of Torah's fundamental principles, that it was delivered to the entire nation together, men, women, and children in assembly. To be holy like God, what does that mean? Now, we know that a place chosen by Hashem and sanctified, like the tabernacle, is holy. And in Parashat Acharei Mot, we've just learned that one can't just enter into the sanctified space of the temple any old time. So what does it mean for a person to be holy? Parashat Kedoshim features 51 divine commandments in all, a wide variety of multifaceted, detailed mitzvot, which beckon to us expectantly, conveying the potential for holiness in every area of life. Some commandments apply exclusively to man's relationship with God. These are known as Bein Adam Lamakom, between man and God. These include examples of what most people would consider to be classic religious observance, such as observance of Shabbat and keeping a distance from idolatry and the complex system of temple offerings, forbidden mixtures, agricultural laws that are applicable in the land of Israel, laws against following occult practices of the nations, and more. Other commandments featured in Parashat Kedoshim are commandments ben Adam lechavero. These mean duties pertaining to man's relationship with his fellow man. And here we find, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself, which Rabbi Akiva called the major principle of Torah. Proper reverence for parents, prohibitions against stealing and vengeance and falsehood and talebearing, the commandment to rebuke one's fellow, to honor the aged, aspects of social justice, such as treating a worker fairly, not withholding salary, honest business practices, and not to trip up a person in any way, helping another in a time of distress, never taking a bribe, loving the convert, proper weights and scales. All these are modes of conduct that uphold and encourage and insist upon God's vision for the model society he wants Israel to become. So, on the one hand, I love you as you are, Hashem says, but I call upon you to be holy. So we might have expected that all the commandments included in this call, or at least most of them, would be consummate spiritual experiences, states of a high, bringing a person to a sense of transcendence, of ecstasy. What else could it mean to experience closeness to God? And if holiness indeed means separation, as it's classically understood, perhaps we should separate ourselves completely from all the things of this world and seek spiritual experiences. But then, how could we develop sensitivity to the needs of others? How could we connect with those around us? How could we honor parents, or engage in proper business practice with honest weights and measures, or leave the corner of the field for the poor? And we would certainly have no opportunity to seek out others in distress, to lend them aid, no opportunity to love another as oneself. Simply listening to Hashem and keeping all his commandments is the foundation for true spiritual experience, because all the commandments flow from and are practical applications of this call to holiness. Torah's idea of holiness isn't limited to one area of our life, or to one room of our home, or to one set hour of our routine, while letting us off the hook by remaining comfortably disconnected from the rest of our day-to-day life. Hashem's call to be holy as he is holy touches and influences and sets the tones and the goals and the boundaries of every aspect of our lives. Shalom. It's only your support that enables Jerusalem Lights to continue producing these videos and to continue with all the aspects of our outreach of Torah for everyone. Your support is so deeply appreciated. Thank you for being part of the Jerusalem Lights community. Shabbat Shalom.